The Journey of Six, A Tale of Secrets and Scents. Chapter 1, The Road Trip Begins. It was a warm Saturday morning when 6 friends piled into a 6-seater family van for a weekend getaway to the countryside. The group consisted of Mia, a cheerful girl who always planned their trips, Mike, her laid-back best friend, Sarah, the quiet bookworm, Adam, the joker of the group, Lily, who always carried her camera, and finally, Mew, a kind and observant girl who often noticed things others overlooked. The road stretched ahead, lined with trees that swayed gently in the breeze. The air was filled with excitement, laughter, and the sound of music playing from the van's old speakers. Mew sat in the back row with Mike, her backpack tucked under her seat. About an hour into the drive, Mew wrinkled her nose. A strange smell wafted through the air, a pungent, foul odor, almost like something rotten. She glanced at Mike. "Do you smell that?" she asked, her voice low enough so the others wouldn't hear. Mike turned to her, his face blank. "Smell what?" "That awful smell," Mew insisted, looking around. She checked her bag, sniffed her jacket, even leaned toward the window to see if the odor was coming from outside. But it was no use. The smell lingered, faint yet persistent. Mike shrugged. "You're imagining it, Mew. I don't smell anything." Mew frowned, her unease growing. She didn't want to make a fuss, so she stayed quiet for the rest of the ride. But every so often, the smell returned, stronger than before. Chapter 2, Reaching the Cabin. By late evening, the group arrived at the cabin nestled deep in the woods. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the clearing. The cabin was rustic but cozy, with a fire pit out front and a view of the nearby lake. Everyone unloaded their bags, excited for the night ahead. As they settled in, Mew couldn't help but notice the smell again. It seemed to follow her, faint but constant, like a shadow she couldn't shake. "Mew, you okay?" Lily asked as she set up her camera to take a group picture. "Yeah, I'm fine," Mew replied quickly, forcing a smile. She didn't want to ruin the trip with her growing paranoia. Dinner was simple but satisfying: grilled sausages, roasted marshmallows, and cans of soda around the fire. The group laughed and joked, their voices echoing in the quiet forest. As the fire crackled, Mia suggested they tell ghost stories to set the mood. Chapter 3, Tales Around the Fire. Adam went first, spinning a dramatic tale about a haunted forest ranger. Lily followed with a creepy story about a cursed camera. One by one, they shared their stories, each adding to the eerie atmosphere. When it was Mew's turn, she hesitated. She hadn't planned on telling a story, but the nagging smell she had been noticing all day gnawed at her thoughts. "I don't have a ghost story," she began, her voice soft, "but I need to tell you something strange that's been happening to me." The group fell silent, their eyes on her. The only sound was the crackling of the fire and the distant chirping of crickets. Mew took a deep breath. "Since this morning, I've been smelling something off. It's hard to describe, but it's disgusting, like something rotten. I've checked my bag, my clothes, everything, but I can't figure out where it's coming from." The group exchanged uneasy glances. "Are you sure it's not just the van, or something from the road?" Sarah asked. "I don't think so," Mew said, shaking her head. "It feels personal, like it's following me. And it's not all the time, just in bursts. I thought maybe it was something supernatural, like a spirit, or a ghost." Her voice trembled as she spoke, and the others leaned in, their expressions serious. Even Adam, who usually cracked jokes, stayed silent. "I don't know if it's just me being paranoid," Mew continued, "but what if something followed us here?" Chapter 4, The Confession. When Mew finished her story, the group sat in tense silence. The firelight cast flickering shadows across their faces, making their expressions hard to read. Finally, Mike broke the silence. He sat up straighter, his face unusually serious. "Mew," he began, his voice low. "There's something I need to tell you." Everyone turned to look at him, the air thick with anticipation. "What is it?" Mew asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Mike sighed heavily, running a hand through his hair. "It's me. I've been, well, passing gas all day. I didn't want to say anything, but now that you've brought it up, yeah. That smell. It's me." The group erupted into laughter. Adam nearly fell off his log, clutching his stomach as tears streamed down his face. Even Sarah, usually reserved, was doubled over, laughing so hard she couldn't breathe. Mew stared at Mike, her mouth open in shock. "You're joking." Mike shook his head, a sheepish grin on his face. "Sorry, Mew. I didn't think it was that bad. Guess I underestimated it." Mew's face turned bright red. "You let me think I was haunted. I didn't know you'd take it that far," Mike said, laughing. "I thought you'd figure it out." Chapter 5, The Aftermath. The rest of the night was filled with jokes at Mike's expense. Mew eventually laughed along, though she swore she'd never forgive him for letting her panic all day. As the fire burned low and the group headed inside, Mew felt a sense of relief. The mystery had been solved, no ghosts, no curses, just an embarrassing but harmless explanation. The trip continued without incident, and the friends returned home with new stories to tell. But for weeks afterward, every time Mew smelled something off, she couldn't help but glance over her shoulder, half expecting to see Mike grinning mischievously. Epilogue, The True Haunting. Months later, as Mew unpacked her bag from another trip, she found something wedged into a side pocket, a tiny, moldy piece of food she hadn't noticed before. Her laughter echoed through the room as she realized the true source of the mysterious smell. But even then, a small part of her couldn't help but wonder, was it really just Mike? Vocabulary summary. Paranoia, extreme suspicion or fear of something. Faint, barely noticeable or weak. Mischievous, playfully causing trouble. Nagging, persistently bothersome. Rustic, simple and old-fashioned, often relating to the countryside. Sheepish, embarrassed or awkward. Anticipation, excited or anxious waiting. Uneasy, feeling uncomfortable or worried. Flickering, shifting or wavering light. Reluctantly, doing something unwillingly or with hesitation.